Good morning. It's 26 degrees here in Abuja, a bit chilly but bright and sunny. Welcome Sunrise Daily. I'm Nelta Igbe.
Good morning and welcome, brand new week. And the Hamatan is here, finally. that rainy season that was raining for 40 days and 40 nights. It's time for us to have some Hamatan. So, but you know, it's very dusty. If you're someone who is allergic to the dust, wear a face mask, protect yourself. Try not to fall ill this season. And that brings us to what we're looking at on our screens right now. Welcome to Abuja. I'm so glad Ayo is not here.
Why?
Because he would have been going through a whole "this is Lagos" situation. No. We don't say "this is Abuja" now. We say "welcome to Abuja," the nation's capital. Serene atmosphere, peaceful people, loving environment. I'm doing my best here. I'm doing my best sales pitch. I love this city. And there you have it, the city gate. If you're entering into the nation's capital from anywhere, from the airport at least, if you land at the airport, this is where you're going to be.
And even if you're coming in by road, most of those coming in by road come through Gwagwalada, Zuba, and all of that, and then come through this same axis. Although a few people pretend and want to go through Kubwa because it's closer home to them and all. But this is the city gate, Abuja city gate. But beautiful as it is, as you're coming in, what you're seeing first, Kayla, I've always asked this question. How is it that when you come into the city, yes, you're driving from the airport or from the airport axis, and you come into, what you're seeing first is the iconic stadium. Smack in that middle, and you have to go through that to get through the central business area. Why is the stadium there? And someone said to me, because sports is a unifier.
There you go.
Sports is a unifier. So you just see that stadium and know that, hey, this is where it is. This is like the No. But it's not just about football. The stadium has every sporting facility you can. It's like a melting pot.
Fantastic.
Melting pot of everybody. And when we get into that stadium, there is no ethnicity, there is no religion, there is no political party. It's all about going in there to go away with the gold. Welcome to Abuja.
One of my favorite parts near this place is the Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks is not too far from here. And I love to climb Twin Peaks. It's amazing when you climb Twin Peaks and you look down, that's your view. That's your view directly when you climb there. We should go, Nelta.
No, don't worry. The Twin Peaks is just behind my house. But you see,
if I lived there, I would be at that place every day.
Oh, then you will not have another life. But you see this, the beautiful thing about this is the Twin Peaks is as you're going towards City Gate, on your left. And you may not be, if you're driving, please be careful. You may not be able to see the Twin Peaks. So it's a beautiful place to climb once in a while if you're one of the outdoors type. But coming back into the city of Abuja and into the studio, let's bring you up to speed about what's happening today. Because Kayla, a lot is happening today.
I mean, where do we begin? Okay, we'll start off with the major story happening today, which is the cabinet reshuffle. President Tinubu is going to be swearing in those 7 new ministers today, and there are so many briefings. Happening today from the new people. Once they get into office, they have to have a powwow, really, with the people who work with them. So 7 new ministers to be sworn in by President Tinubu today. This cabinet reshuffle and all the hopes that the Nigerian people have for the reshuffle. So that's one of the things happening in the nation's capital.
Who wondered why 7 new ministers if some ministries had been merged? I mean, why are you having 7 new ministers? Well, sometime in the course of this administration, you get to understand why. As someone said, it's so that the duties are broken down to the nitty-gritty, and everyone has the opportunity to get down to the get down, as I say. But the other thing that's happening is something that has to do with wrongful removal from office. Yes, that's a former Chief Justice CJN, Justice Walter Onoge, is still in court against the federal government to how do you say now?
explain.
He wants an explanation.
He wants
why
an explanation.
He was removed from office.
Yes.
But at some point, I thought they were saying that they had found a way to settle this out of court. Well, maybe today we'll get to find out how that was eventually settled. Amongst all the things that are happening today, these are just a few we have brought to the fore. Again, a lot of other things are happening. As Kayla said, there'll be a lot of briefings. Many of those ministers who are coming into office and those who have been in office are briefing for one reason or the other. Yeah. We'll bring you up to speed on all of those. But let's just quickly dash and see what some of the newspapers are saying on their headlines.
We kick off a rundown of the papers this morning with this headline from the Daily Times: State of the Nation, what we would have done differently. That is from Atiku Abubakar, the former presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party. He's offering President Tinubu solutions to Nigeria's problems, but the presidency replies Atiku's economic proposals would have worsened Nigeria's situation. More on that from the Daily Times this morning. Guardian leads with the federal government begins food imports may extend zero duty initiative timeline. More on that from page 6. This Nigeria, Senate vows to stop illegal mining in Nigeria as panel visits Niger Governor Bago over collapsed mining site. Serap is also speaking up on this Nigeria. Serap demanding the release of underage protesters. More on that from page 6 of this Nigeria. Nigerian Tribune, what I would have done differently. More on that from pages 28 and 29 from the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Nigerians rejected your ideas in 2023, replies the presidency. The Blueprint newspaper today: 8 months after sack of REA management team, reps begin probe into $2 billion renewable energy investments. More on that from the Blueprint this morning. The Daily Trust leading with families of detained minors crying for justice. I thought my son was dead, says one of the parents. Falana, other lawyers challenge bail terms. Inspector General of Police, prosecutors' utterances disappointing. Governor Yusuf demands detainees return to Kano, and CSOs threaten mass action. Serap wants minors released in 48 hours. More on that from the Daily Trust this morning. Nigerian News Direct, what I would have done differently is also the major headline there. Atiku slams Tinubu's economic policies, offers alternative solutions. And then, of course, we have this one here from the Leadership newspaper. NYC core members yet to get the 77,000 naira allowance. Resort to side jobs, say current 33,000 naira allowee is not sustainable. More on that from page 4 of the Leadership newspaper this morning. New Telegraph, and bad governance protests. Trying minors shows government as authoritarian and intolerant, according to the ACF. Calls for their release and compensation. We can get that from pages 2 and 3 of the New Telegraph this morning. The Vanguard, why exporters are struggling, an investigative report there. More on that from page 19 of the Vanguard newspaper. And in business, 70 firms exited Nigeria in 7 years on FX power. You can get more of that from the Business Day newspaper. The Abuja Inquirer, Wike beggars set for collision. A very big story right here in the nation's capital. The minister is vowing no going back as 326 people have been arrested already. You can get more of that from the Abuja Inquirer this morning. And those are the major headlines this morning. Very interesting headline there from the Abuja Inquirer. Wike versus the beggars in Abuja. And he's been very vehement about this. Listen, apparently the FCT has a plan. There's a master plan for the FCT, and everyone has to get on board. And beggars, according to the minister, are not part of that master plan. But there are solutions that are out of the box. I'm not going to get tired of calling for out of the box thinking. We have to be able to find alternate housing. We have to be able to change the way we do things. There has to be alternate housing. It's something that we can look into, something that the FCT administration can do. Regulate these things, pushing people away. You're just going to push them. In fact, I'm seeing from the Abuja Inquirer that the beggars are taunting, saying, now you go tire. That's the way they're putting it. I do understand that many times these beggars can be a nuisance in the nation's capital. It does happen. But, we have to be humane as government. There has to be some kind of humanity in the way that they handle these sorts of situations. So there, from the Abuja Inquirer, Wike beggars set for collision. There's going to be enforcement this week. At least that's what the FCT police are telling me. There's going to be enforcement this week. They're going to go out there and arrest more people. They've arrested over 300 people, over 300 beggars. There's more enforcement this week. But, as we do with demolitions in the nation's capital, you do it, it will come back. You kill it, it will come back. We have to come up with some sort of solution that will not resurface, that where the problems will not come back. But, he's his minister, it's his city. We're watching to see how all of this works out, and the enforcement that will be holding this week. We heard that we'll be invited to come along with them for this enforcement. Yeah. But this coalition between Wike and beggars, have you had any bad experiences with beggars before?
Don't ask me.
I'll tell you one. I'll tell you one that I had. It was at the Wuse market. I was driving into Wuse market, and these little boys, they come and they start to, ask you, auntie, please give me something, But I was in my car. They were in the car in front of me. One boy was begging by the passenger window. Another one was trying to open the back door. So while that one in front was speaking to them, please give me something to eat, and all of that, someone was trying to open the back door to pick up things from the car. I remember I had to go to the market authorities and report and say, look, these innocent beggars that you have at the gates of Wuse Market, they can actually be perpetrating one crime or the other. At least I witnessed that.
True.
So if there's some sort of way that this can be sorted out, I know he's going with the eviction plan. But if there's any other alternative, we would like to see a long-lasting solution to the problem. So there's my take there from the Abuja Inquirer. Wike beggars set for collision.
Kayla, when I said don't ask me about my experience with the beggars, it's not because I've not had experience with them, but I also think about the fact that they are humans, and some of them, mark the word, some of them are just seeking for a means of survival. And if you can reach out to them, reasonably so, please do so. But then the minister of the FCT has his reasons why he is doing what he's doing, and he has spoken about it over not just once, not twice, not 3 times. He's talking about why the beggars need to be taken off the street. I understand that a facility or a place has been arranged for them where they can stay and be taken care of. Whether that is functional is a question that begs to be answered. But my take on some of the headlines is coming from the Vanguard newspaper, and it has to do with the economy. When we keep talking about Nigeria is not an exporting country, we import a lot. The exporters are having issues. From substandard packaging, some will say, to inability to meet up with the standards of the destination countries. But they are also talking about the things they are having to deal with. And these are an investigation on the front page of the Vanguard, talking about the things that the exporters are not able to do. For one, they are not able to achieve the pre-COVID performance. Why are they not able to achieve the pre-COVID performance? Well, and this is what they are saying. We are unable to benefit from higher dollar value. Why? Lament lack of access to export proceeds. Again, why? And then Dr. Muda Yusuf speaks up and says it's about competitiveness in price and quality. Nigeria at one time Nigeria was known to export a couple of things. One of those things which we used to export, and I understand we still export, that is heightened skin for leather for shoes and bags, and I understand we still do that. There's also the other part where we used to export groundnuts, which was like we export things that are of comparative advantage. Why are we leaving all of that to pursue the things that we are not able to compete with? Can we go back to the things where we have comparative advantage? At one time, Nigeria was the place to go to for palm oil. Some countries came and collected our seedlings, and now they're exporting more, like Malaysia, exporting more of our palm oil. Can we step back a bit and look at how, as they say, look inwards? What are we doing differently, or what can we do differently, and then begin to push out so that we can begin to draw the benefits from export? And honestly, it's something that I think we can all look into. But get to page 19 of the Vanguard newspaper and see the full details of that investigative report that is there. So we will take a moment and we'll come back to pick up the conversation. It has to do with some legal issues and our laws. We'll be back in a moment. Don't go away. Newspapers are saying on their headlines.
We kick off a rundown of the papers this morning with this headline from the Daily Times: State of the Nation, what we would have done differently. That is from Atiku Abubakar, the former presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party. He's offering President Tinubu solutions to Nigeria's problems, but the presidency replies Atiku's economic proposals would have worsened Nigeria's situation. More on that from the Daily Times this morning. Guardian leads with the federal government begins food imports may extend zero duty initiative timeline. More on that from page 6. This Nigeria, Senate vows to stop illegal mining in Nigeria as panel visits Niger Governor Bago over collapsed mining site. Serap is also speaking up on this Nigeria. Serap demanding the release of underage protesters. More on that from page 6 of this Nigeria. Nigerian Tribune, what I would have done differently. More on that from pages 28 and 29 from the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Nigerians rejected your ideas in 2023, replies the presidency. The Blueprint newspaper today: 8 months after sack of REA management team, reps begin probe into $2 billion renewable energy investments. More on that from the Blueprint this morning. The Daily Trust leading with families of detained minors crying for justice. I thought my son was dead, says one of the parents. Falana, other lawyers challenge bail terms. Inspector General of Police, prosecutors' utterances disappointing. Governor Yusuf demands detainees return to Kano, and CSOs threaten mass action. Serap wants minors released in 48 hours. More on that from the Daily Trust this morning. Nigerian News Direct, what I would have done differently is also the major headline there. Atiku slams Tinubu's economic policies, offers alternative solutions. And then, of course, we have this one here from the Leadership newspaper. NYC core members yet to get the 77,000 naira allowance. Resort to side jobs, say current 33,000 naira allowee is not sustainable. More on that from page 4 of the Leadership newspaper this morning. New Telegraph, and bad governance protests. Trying minors shows government as authoritarian and intolerant, according to the ACF. Calls for their release and compensation. We can get that from pages 2 and 3 of the New Telegraph this morning. The Vanguard, why exporters are struggling, an investigative report there. More on that from page 19 of the Vanguard newspaper. And in business, 70 firms exited Nigeria in 7 years on FX power. You can get more of that from the Business Day newspaper. The Abuja Inquirer, Wike beggars set for collision. A very big story right here in the nation's capital. The minister is vowing no going back as 326 people have been arrested already. You can get more of that from the Abuja Inquirer this morning. And those are the major headlines this morning. Very interesting headline there from the Abuja Inquirer. Wike versus the beggars. in Abuja, and he's been very vehement about this. Listen, apparently the FCT has a plan. There's a master plan for the FCT, and everyone has to get on board. And beggars, according to the minister, are not part of that master plan. But there are solutions that are out of the box. And I'm not going to get tired of calling for out of the box thinking. We have to be able to find alternate housing. We have to be able to change the way we do things. There has to be alternate housing. It's something that we can look into, something that the FCT administration can do. Regulate these things, pushing people away. You're just going to push them. In fact, I'm seeing from the Abuja Inquirer that the beggars are taunting him, saying, now you go tire. That's the way they're putting it. I do understand that many times these beggars can be a nuisance in the nation's capital. It does happen. But, we have to be humane as government. There has to be some kind of humanity in the way that they handle these sorts of situations. So there, from the Abuja Inquirer, Wike beggars set for collision. There's going to be enforcement this week. At least that's what the FCT police are telling me. There's going to be enforcement this week. They're going to go out there and arrest more. They've arrested over 300 people, over 300 beggars. There's more enforcement this week. But as we do with demolitions in the nation's capital, you do it will come back. You kill it will come back. We have to come up with some sort of solution that will not resurface, that where the problems will not come back. But, he's his minister, it's his city. We're watching to see how all of this works out, and the enforcement that will be holding this week. We heard that we'll be invited to come along with them for this enforcement. Yeah. But this coalition between Wike and beggars, have you had any bad experiences with beggars before?
Don't ask me.
I'll tell you one. I'll tell you one that I had. It was at the Wuse market. I was driving into Wuse market, and these little boys, they come and they start to, ask you, auntie, please give me something, But I was in my car. They were in the car in front of me. One boy was begging by the passenger window. Another one was trying to open the back door. So while that one in front was speaking to them, please give me something to eat, and all of that, someone was trying to open the back door to pick up things from the car. I remember I had to go to the market authorities and report and say, look, these innocent beggars that you have at the gates of Wuse Market, they can actually be perpetrating one crime or the other. At least I witnessed that.
True.
So if there's some sort of way that this can be sorted out, I know he's going with the eviction plan. But if there's any other alternative, we would like to see a long-lasting solution to the problem. So there's my take there from the Abuja Inquirer. Wike beggars set for collision.
Kayla, when I said don't ask me about my experience with the beggars, it's not because I've not had experience with them, but I also think about the fact that they are humans, and some of them, mark the word, some of them are just seeking for a means of survival. And if you can reach out to them, reasonably so, please do so. But then the minister of the FCT has his reasons why he is doing what he's doing, and he has spoken about it over not just once, not twice, not 3 times. He's talking about why the beggars need to be taken off the street. I understand that a facility or a place has been arranged for them where they can stay and be taken care of. Whether that is functional is a question that begs to be answered. But my take on some of the headlines is coming from the Vanguard newspaper, and it has to do with the economy. When we keep talking about Nigeria is not an exporting country, we import a lot. The exporters are having issues. From substandard packaging, some will say, to inability to meet up with the standards of the destination countries. But they are also talking about the things they are having to deal with. And these are an investigation on the front page of the Vanguard, talking about the things that the exporters are not able to do. For one, they are not able to achieve the pre-COVID performance. Why are they not able to achieve the pre-COVID performance? Well, and this is what they are saying. We are unable to benefit from higher dollar value. Why? Lament lack of access to export proceeds. Again, why? And then Dr. Muda Yusuf speaks up and says it's about competitiveness in price and quality. Nigeria at one time Nigeria was known to export a couple of things. One of those things which we used to export, and I understand we still export, that is heightened skin for leather for shoes and bags, and I understand we still do that. There's also the other part where we used to export groundnuts, which was like we export things that are of comparative advantage. Why are we leaving all of that to pursue the things that we are not able to compete with? Can we go back to the things where we have comparative advantage? At one time, Nigeria was the place to go to for palm oil. Some countries came and collected our seedlings, and now they're exporting more, like Malaysia, exporting more of our palm oil. Can we step back a bit and look at how, as they say, look inwards? What are we doing differently, or what can we do differently, and then begin to push out so that we can begin to draw the benefits from export? And honestly, it's something that I think we can all look into. But get to page 19 of the Vanguard newspaper and see the full details of that investigative report that is there. So we will take a moment and we'll come back to pick up the conversation. It has to do with some legal issues and our laws. We'll be back in a moment. Don't go away.
Those that are not criminally liable under the law, those are the people that are young ones below the age of 7. Once I'm more than 7, you can be charged to court. The only thing is that you need to.
All right. Well, those statements, that statement there from the force PR Romuyiwa Adejubi has caused a lot of ripples across the country, and we're trying to understand what's going on. Of course, it is referring to the arraignment of some people considered or perceived to be minors, on treason, and of course that video has gone viral. There are a lot of balls that have been dropped here, and it's the learning time for us as a people. We need to understand how these things are done, and helping us to navigate this trying situation, and helping us understand what's really going on, what should have been done today. We have a lawyer joining us via Zoom, Mr. Adiola Oyinlade. Thank you so much for being with us on the program this morning.
Good morning, Kayla. Good morning to all the viewers, wherever you're watching us. Thank you for having me on the show this morning.
When you saw that video, what was the first thing that came to your mind?
Very shocking, very embarrassing. In this age of, global age of technology, virtually everyone all over the world has seen this. And of course, it's put a question mark on our administration of criminal justice system in Nigeria. How do we manage the process? Nigeria should, this is after 1999, we transited to current democracy. We shouldn't be crawling again at the age of 25 in this current democratic system. We should be able to make quantum jump now. And when the committees of nations, or where countries all over the world who are expanding frontiers of human rights are being counted, Nigeria should be taking the lead. So this is very disgusting, and it's just like we are trying to be famous through infamous conduct.
Wait, listening to Mr. Muyiwa Adejubi, the public relations officer of the Nigerian police, he has come under a lot of criticism from many people for the things that he said, following the release of that video. But I want to get from you, did he tell any lies? Was he wrong in the statement that he made?
I can understand Prince Muyiwa Adejobi's job, but I don't envy him at this point in time. Under the law, we have our administration of criminal justice system. And then, of course, for an adult, if an adult has committed a crime, there are processes and the procedure. But when a child has committed a crime, if the crime committed at that point in time was committed by a child that you can call or who has attained adult age, there are also juvenile procedures. So you don't merge every child with an adult who has committed a crime. It's easier for everybody to say, oh, if a crime has been committed, then you are going to face trial. But they did not take time to also look at the procedures, the processes, enshrined all the plethora of laws that are applied or that are applicable when we are talking about criminal justice system in Nigeria.
All right, so let's talk about the processes that were not followed. Where was the ball dropped? What were the stages? Because there are several issues. Number one, many people were complaining about the boys looking malnourished, and that they've been in incarceration for longer than they should have been. And then there's also the fact that many people believe that they shouldn't have been arraigned in that court. They should have been in a juvenile court. And then there's also the issue where, you know, some people just believe that, you know, these are minors. Why are they even being arraigned in the first place? And then, of course, the taking over of that case by the Attorney General of the Federation. You know, these are some of the issues that we've heard going around, at least on social media, and people sending statements. I'm looking at this statement here from the Ira Consultative Forum, and it's brought a lot of issues to the fore. But let's hear from you as a legal person. What balls were dropped here?
Okay, there are a plethora of legal issues in this case. The first thing is, let's even start with arrest. Yes, we understand that the police have the power of arrest under the Police Act. And then what are the rights of an accused person? Because the moment you are arrested, you are an accused person. An accused person, either invited to the police station or arrested, do they also have rights? This is where to start from. You've arrested people. What are the scope of rights that they have already provided for under the law? They are entitled to have access to the lawyers of their choice. They are entitled to apply for administrative bail when they are in the custody of the Nigerian police. All these do they allow them to exhaust all these available remedies already under the law? Were they even allowed access to their lawyers? There is one thing to get people arrested. There is another thing to also deny them of exercising all the rights available to them. Then after this, somebody who is arrested is not guilty until court it is common that people are arrested without commencing investigation. And it's also possible in the course of the investigation, people get arrested. What this means is that when you are arrested before investigation, you are supposed to be allowed to exercise all the rights available to you. Because if you deny them access to lawyers, if you don't allow them administrative bail, if you put them in a condition that will affect their heads, and at the end of the day, it turned out that these suspects are not even are not connected one way or the other. There is no nexus between them and the crime you are looking at. You've already made them to suffer. You have already put them in a condition or a situation whereby they've already suffered for what you are investigating. So now, this is very common, and it's very unfortunate that we get people arrested, detained, suffered before we commence investigation or while we are commencing investigations. These young people have been arrested for a long time. Looking at the pictures, even the footage that we see of some of all these people, it clearly shows that they are not properly taken care of. But from what we have seen, it shows that something is wrong. So there is one thing about police exercising their power of arrest, and there is another thing managing the entire processes in line with international conventions that Nigerians are signatory to. You know, under our law, Nigeria is known to always sign, ratified, and transform some of these international laws into our local law. And we get applauded that Nigeria is a signatory to this convention, Nigeria is a signatory to this in the charter, Nigeria is doing this at the global stage. But there is one thing for you to sign some of all this law. There is another when it comes to implementation of this. This is what the international community, the whole world, use as a yardstick to rate you. I may have a car, I may have the best car in town, but how am I managing the car? No fuel, no oil, not regularly, service. And we're just saying, look at the structure, just look at the fitness, just look at the outside of my car and see what I'm driving. But we know that the car
inside of it is really not working. So, I want to be able to look at it from all sides. There are people who, while we're discussing, these are children, they shouldn't be arraigned, there's other ways to do this. While all of that is going on, there are people who are stuck on the images that we saw during the End Bad Governance protest of young people who look a lot like the people that we saw in that court, carrying generators and running into the street, destroying property. Many people still have those images in their heads. And, while we're discussing, they're young, no, look, there's a way to do this, they're thinking, no. When it came to the destruction of properties and people's livelihoods, people were not, they were not very gentle when they were doing it. So why should we be gentle when it comes to the dispensation of justice, especially if this is the reason, if that is the reason why we're told that these young people have been arraigned? What do you make of that thought process? And what should the government, because it's possible that many people who are trying to prosecute these young people have those images in their heads. We even hear conversations of people saying, how do you know their ages? How do you know they're underage? There are people who are claiming that they're actually not. And also citing that when it comes to elections in that part of the country, many people who look a lot like these young people say that they're 18 and allowed to vote and have voter cards. So how do we manage these different thought processes where we are right now?
Okay, Nigeria is a country of law. Nigeria is a country that is operated by virtue of law. Nigeria, everything we do, either as a police or either the executive arm, the legislative arm, the judicial arm, we all derive all these powers and our activities from the law. However, for the fact that someone has committed an offense, no one will say that you should not arrest anybody, or even if one is, there is a reasonable suspicion that someone has committed a crime. Nobody is saying that you should not arrest a suspect. What we are saying is that when a suspect is arrested, you should follow the procedures, the laws of the land that govern your power of arrest, your power of investigation, your power to arraign such people. We are not saying that when protest, of course, protest is a fundamental right enshrined in the Constitution, and it's linked to our freedom of assembly. It's also even that to freely assemble is also linked to freedom of expression. Because when people are protesting, they want to express their minds. They want to give a feedback And I believe every government should even see that as an opportunity to get a feedback from the public. And since these are guaranteed rights, we cannot say these people should not express, their fundamental rights. But in a situation whereby in the process of expressing your concern to the state or asking state to look into your concerns, and people are already using that avenue to commit crimes, it is expected that the police should act in that regard, but act professionally. Police are not just ordinary people on the streets. They are trained in their policing activities. They are trained to manage situation professionally.
Mr. Inlade, if I may come in here, let's just pull back a little bit. You said something just now about even if a crime is been committed, you need to the police needs to work professionally and go by the laws of the land. So let's look at what the Nigerian Constitution defines as a minor or an underage, because we'll say you're a child until you're 12, and then after 12, you are considered a minor. But what exactly is there a portion of the Constitution that specifies who a minor is and how they should be treated regardless? Because even when they do commit murder, because according to the charges, attempted murder is one of the things that they're being charged for. I stand to be corrected here, but let's look at it. What does the Constitution say about who, or at what point are you a child, and at what point are you a minor?
Okay, because Constitution is not meant to be exhaustive, to enshrine every aspect of life. So Constitution does not state clearly what a minor is. But there are other laws that derive their existence from the constitutions that makes provision for who is a minor, at what stage can somebody commit crime, who is indollis capalis, somebody at a particular age but who cannot commit a crime. It depends on the legal issues. For example, if we are talking about rape, it's not expected that a 5-year-old boy will have committed a rape. And that if somebody of the age of 13 or 16 has committed age, so the legal issue, the subject at this point in time will determine. Now, for a crime to have been alleged to have been committed, or for element of crime to be established, there is a law that governs and states clearly the crime, the element of the crime, and the punishments that will be visited upon whoever has committed that crime. And each of these laws states all these requirements. So, for example, I think I read, if I'm correct, maybe the police PPR mentioned that at the age of 5, if you commit a crime, whether 5
7 or 7, actually, he mentioned 7.
Yes, you can be asked to answer questions. Then I will ask, what crime is he talking about? Is he picking from a particular law to define this? Or is he saying generally that is what all the laws that apply to all criminal-related issues? Or was he quoting administration of criminal justice system? Was he referring to penal code that applies in Abuja and another part of Nigeria? Was he talking about terrorism acts? Was he talking about the criminal code that applied in the southern part of Nigeria? So we don't have a universal law that's states a particular age.
So in a case where the charge is a charge of treason,
let me just put it this way, that irrespective of the age of whoever has committed or alleged to have committed a crime, when the person is being investigated and being arraigned in court, the right of the person should be respected vis-a-vis or as provided under the law. If you are detaining person in the police stations or in the police station, for example, you should also allow them to have access to food. It takes somebody who is also healthy to also cooperate with the police and the courts. to achieve justice.
So in this case here now, where we're talking about minors, whichever we want to define it, Section 29 talks about they're considered minors until, Section 29 of the Constitution, they're considered minors until age 18. After that, they are treated as adults, so to speak, going by our Constitution here. And now they are being charged with treason in a regular court. Is that the process? Going by what you said earlier about the police having to work professionally and going by the laws of the land. So let's put it all together here. They are considered, according to Section 29, minors. The police has arraigned them in a regular court. There is a hue and cry about that is wrong, besides the fact that their rights have been abused. They have no access to food, or they are looking malnourished, as the case may be. So are the police, or is the police doing the right thing? Is this where they should have taken them to? Should they have been taken to a juvenile court and then from there proceed?
Yes, for under the Child Act and the Child
Right
Law.
Act, yeah.
Yes, Right Act at the national level, and of course at state level. There is a particular reason why law is specific when it comes to the rights and the plight of the children. So meaning that they cannot be subjected to all the rigors of trials that people of age are usually subjected to. And even most times when they even want, if there is any reason for any of them to be invited to as witnesses in the regular court, they are always being protected. So for anyone who is categorized as a minor, it is expected that a matter that young people, or should I say minor, will be tried, should be at a juvenile court, not a regular court.
So in this case, now what should be done? Of course, the Attorney General of the Federation, we understand, has received the files already. What should we be expecting coming from the legal side of things?
Yes, that's commendable, and that of course this is I see as an opportunity to right the wrongs, and of course, if you ask me, for all these young children, for them to be on the streets protesting, asking for a better life, asking for a country where poverty will be eradicated, I think arraigning them for treason is not actually the solution to the issues. If you ask me, the charges against them should be dropped.
But Mr. Let's leave law and look at the humanity or the humane side of things here. Again, children on the streets protesting, asking where they are being charged with treason and inciting a military coup. What does that say of the leadership of that kind of state or country, as the case may be? What does it say of, I'm not saying leadership here, I'm not talking about at the highest. I'm talking about from the family to the local government to the state and maybe to the national. What does that say of that kind of a state?
Well, I would rather say that to make Nigeria a country that we all desire, it calls for everyone's contribution, starting from the home, like you rightly mentioned. We need to start believing or thinking that Nigeria can be better. The moment we start feeling that, it will always be like this will inform attitude, behaviors that will be negating Nigeria expanding, to be where it should really belong. The message right from home should be about working hard and let's do the right thing. So also at the local government, the attention is more on the leadership at the central. People hardly even talk and make their state governors accountable. And then, of course, we should also start thinking of how to make our leaders accountable, rather than always seeing them as people we can actually rush to whenever we want to pay school fees of our children, or we have one issue or the other. And of course, the religious bodies too also have roles to play in this regard. Rather than making it about prosperity, every day we gather together, we should also talk about values, talk about character. Because this is what we reflect in what we do, irrespective of what we are pursuing, our deliverables, outcomes as an individual or as a group. So these are the roles that is expected, right from the family unit to the community, to the local government, to the states, and to the government in general. The values and believing that this is the only country we have. And of course, Nigeria is already a blessed country by virtue of the resources we have. For the fact that many years ago, we are being projected as a country that will be competing with countries we call, our contemporaries all over the world who are taking the lead now, also showed that we are not doing it the right way. So it calls for having a new orientation about believing in this country.
So, Ilade, I want to be able to get what you mean when you say the charges should be dropped. When we saw those videos of young people destroying people's businesses, being violent on the streets, you couldn't go outside, when we saw those videos, it was collective disappointment across board. We were all very disappointed at what we saw. And while the conversation has gone to the family unit and leadership, the people who were carrying out those acts, you think, I'm not saying that these boys are guilty because the case is still in court. I'm just saying generally, if a young person is found to have done something like that, shouldn't they face some sort of repercussion for their action?
Yes, I've just said it at the beginning of the program, that no reasonable person will speak in favor of crime, or will speak that crime should be committed, or say that whoever has committed a crime should be treated with pampered or with a pat at the back. All I'm just saying that if someone has committed or is alleged to have committed a crime, during investigation, during arraignment, all the rights that the suspects are entitled to should be allowed to play out. They should be allowed to enjoy all these rights, having access to their lawyers. They should not be treated in such a way, or the whole thing should not be mismanaged in such a way that will bring embarrassment to the country. Now, we are talking about if any of this child can be linked after investigation with evidence to have committed stealing, no, I would not say they cannot be tried in that regard. But of course, in line with the position of the law, through juvenile process.
I said it earlier, but I'm going to bring it again. We also have to remember, those videos during the End Bad Governance protest, they can't leave my mind. Remember these people who look a lot like the young people that we saw in court. We saw them driving the police APC. You remember that? That video went online as well. We're watching that happen. We were watching in horror as these things continue to unfold. But I want to be able to get your thoughts. The security expert that says this case should actually have been handled by the states and not by the federal government. So what do you make of that? Is that also one of the mistakes that has been made in this matter? Should they have been tried in the states where the alleged crimes happened? Or, was it the right thing to bring them all the way to Abuja and have to go through all the things that we're looking at right now?
Yes, that's why I'm having issue with the terrorism aspects of the charges against these children. If people have vandalized properties, if they have stolen goods, items belonging to another, of course, it's expected that the law in that state should apply. But because of the nexus of terrorism to it, that is why it appears to me that they are being brought to Abuja And if you look at the protests that are snowballed or led to looting, stealing of items, now being linked to terrorism, that is an issue for me. And that's why I said terrorism-related charges should be dropped. Let's look at the merit of the matter, and then, of course, let's address it that way. And if it's about terrorism, because most of what is the comment I've read is that they put inscription, that they are displaying against the government of Nigeria. This cannot amount to terrorism.
No, let's be specific about what they're accused of. They're accused of calling for military change of government. They called for that. Flying a Russian flag in the country. Those are at least two of the major things that we saw from the police. They said these boys did, and we actually heard them chanting in Kano. We heard them chanting some of those calls for a change in military. They wanted a military change of government. And at the time, we had security experts come on here on Channels TV to tell us about the reason why that would sell in that part of the country is because of what they're seeing in neighboring countries. Remember, we are surrounded by a lot of countries that have had military coups. And for many of those countries, there's also the belief that they got the sponsorship or support from the Russian government. It's all in the stratosphere. Everyone is talking about that there. Whether it is true or not is still to be determined. So those are some of the issues that happened. If I'm going to ask you from a legal standpoint, if a minor, oh yes, and before I forget this train of thought, there's also the question about the people who actually sponsored them. You know, many people have been saying, oh, these are just young people. There are other people who are behind them. Why aren't we catching those ones? And why are we focusing on the young people? You can give us some answer to that in your response. But you see, with all of those things happening, if a young person, from a legal standpoint, a young person below, maybe above 7, but below 12, right? And a young person is seen calling for a change of government, calling for a military coup and flying Russian flags and asking for support for that change of government. As a legal person, what should be done? What is the procedure for handling that sort of situation?
Okay, in a situation where a 7-year-old boy, for example, is calling for a change of government, I will want to assess the boy to understand what he knows about government, what he knows about leadership, what he understands about if he has experience on that military regime that he is actually calling for. Of course, this will make you to understand that for a 7-year-old child to be propagating this kind of concept cannot be his own idea, but someone somewhere. It will be difficult for people who do not have experience or who probably were not born during military regime to be chanting that that kind of regime is what they want against a properly democratic system of government. So it will point to the fact that somebody somewhere is drumming for these people to dance. And that is where the security forces should channel their energy into, to investigate, to see whether these young people were actually being sponsored or being brainwashed to go out and be doing this, rather than focusing their energy much more on how those young people will be subjected to the experience that we've all seen, that I don't really want to talk about, or making sure that they go to jail at all costs. It's a pointer to the fact that something is wrong somewhere, and this should be investigated. I feel this is where the energy should be channeled towards. That is, and if this is not looked into, and we're only targeting the people, or maybe the messenger at this point in time, and the source where they got this inspiration or support, or if anyone is pushing them to do this, is not looked into, then another time the same thing will happen again. And if it's not really looked into, it can even snowball to what they are already talking about at this point in time. So that's why I said that when you see a situation unfolding, rather than looking at the periphery aspect of it, let's go substance, let's go deeper. Let's look at, in fact, we can be friendly with all these guys in such a way that they can even divulge much. But if you are punishing them, some of them will believe what they've been told, that, yes, they are still doing the same thing to us. So this is for the security experts to look at and do the needful.
I mean, a lot of comments have been coming in. Some people, what does a child know, you know, and, you know, just the thoughtfulness that is involved in handling these sorts of situations. But we'll be watching to see how the Attorney General handles it. It is in his hands right now. Well, of course, we've seen all the letters from people complaining about this situation, asking for the release. Serap is saying they should be released in 48 hours. Ira Consultative Forum says it's shameful and undermines the integrity of the Tinubu administration. And the Kano State Governor says, bring them back to me. Let's handle that. Is that an option there, that it should be sent back to, let the states handle the situation? Is that something the Attorney General should be thinking about?
Well, I want to believe the Attorney General will look into this, and that, of course, considering the opinions given by experts, and that, of course, he will put them into consideration before deciding this. Taking it back to the states, what was the state government even looking at in the first place before the matter get to this level? Why is it that the state government is just interested now that everybody is talking about it? I try to avoid political nexus into whatever is going on. So I feel the Attorney General should be, should quickly respond to this issue and save Nigeria from further embarrassment when it comes to our ratings, when it comes to human rights globally.
All right. Mr. Adiola Oyinlade, I want to thank you so much for coming in this morning. We do hope that eventually we'll get to that point in Nigeria where the law and humanity can work together to get us to that place we need to get to, where we do not abuse and kill our future in the face of politics. Thank you once again for sharing your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sunrise Daily will be back in a moment. But first, let's step into the Business Morning studios on Sunrise Daily with Ini John Mekwa.
Good morning, everyone. It's a new week. This is Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Well, we do business for just about 30 minutes, and then we head back to the Sunrise Daily studio. We're beginning from the global space as usual. No, we start from Naira this morning, and we look at how Naira closed last week. Well, there you have it. NFEM, we see, closed in the positive. There was a gain of 0.52%. It opened on Friday at 1,675 Naira 49 kobo, but closed at 1,666. So just a couple of Nairas there gained, about 8 Naira 77 kobo is what we see. That was gained. But for NAFEX, it was on the flip side. There it dropped 0.48%, but we know that more reality is captured right here in this market. And, well, there's appreciation right there, a bit of intervention from the CBN, but we didn't see a lot of intervention from the CBN last week, generally. I guess that's why we don't have so much. But we've seen a sustenance losing the 1,500 level to 1,600. We've seen a sustenance of that in the last about 2 weeks or so. We've been around 1,600. Now let's go to that global space and see that oil prices extended gains on Monday, rising by more than $1, just like it did on Friday, because OPEC Plus has decided to delay the plans to increase output by a month. So, of course, that's supposed to squeeze prices and lead to this increase. So we see increase this morning, 1.614 Brent at $74.28 a barrel, while for WTI is 1.74 at $70.70. So that is a major price driver for today. That's OPEC OPEC Plus decision to hold off from adding supply to the market. So they will extend of 2.2 million barrels per day for another 1 month in December, with an increase already delayed from October because of falling prices and weak demand. Now let's come to Nigeria. Still talking about the oil and gas part now. Well, it seems we haven't seen the last of, whatever is going on in the oil and gas space between Dangote on the one hand, Ipman and Petron, and then of course NNPCL is in that picture. So now Dangote is coming to say that they're reacting to what they term a misinformation by Ipman and Petron on the price of PMS imported into the country. In a statement signed by the Group Chief Branding and Communications Officer, Mr. Anthony Chejina, Dangote challenges anyone claiming that they can land PMS at a price that is cheaper as importing, that it may mean that they're importing substandard products and conniving with international traders to dump low-quality products into the country without concern for the health of Nigerians or the longevity of their vehicles. So they clarify that post-deregulation, NNPC set the pace of selling PMS to domestic marketers at 971 naira per litre for sale into ships, and then 990 naira for sale into trucks. This, according to the refinery, set the benchmark for their own pricing, as they say, that they sell at 960 for a litre into ships and 990 into trucks for a litre. And so they're seeking to clarify some of those stories you may have been hearing in the country from Ipman, from Petron, and of course from NNPCL. Now let's shift from the oil and gas and go to the pharmaceutical. This concerns everyone in the country. We know with the exit of a lot of pharmaceutical companies, among other companies in the country, we've seen inflation in pharmaceuticals, and that of course has been a worrying one. So for instance, we've seen rising inflation impact pharmaceuticals, with firms' finished goods inventory increasing by 64, I believe we have a slide for that, 64.6% for the first quarter of this year, 2024, and then between 2019 and 2023, the selling cost and selling price of Ampiclox, among other pharmaceuticals, went up by over 1,000%. So the cost for Ampiclox surged by 1,390%, while for the selling price went up about 1,100%. Then we look at inflation numbers, and we see contribution to inflation, health's contribution to inflation year on year went up almost 1%, 0.98%, while month on month, we've seen it at 0.08%. Now let's talk about how perhaps with the exit of the multinationals, we can attract investment into, even if it's domestic investment, into the medical sector and get more medicals, pharmaceuticals perhaps. We'll be discussing this with Dr. Abdul Mukhtar. He's the National Coordinator, Presidential Value Chain Unlocking Program. Joins us from our Abuja studio. Dr. Mukhtar, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's start with the situation that we have now. We see that inflation, health has contributed about 0.98%, almost 1% to inflation in the last 1 year. We've seen the price of pharmaceuticals. I mean, time for business to go into some of those very critical one, but a worrying one. And now that we have you, I think you were appointed in 2023 to come into this sector as coming into the value chain, looking at investment from the private sector into this. What areas are you looking at? What have you been doing, to help cushion the event of this inflation in the pharmaceuticals?
Thank you. So I'm talking about the Presidential Initiative for Unlocking the Healthcare Value Chain. This is a program that was initiated and created by His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in October of last year, basically to look at all these key issues. You know, if you look at the numbers, Nigeria with a population of 230 million people, we still import about 70 to 80% of the pharmaceuticals that we use. We still import almost 100% of the vaccines that we use and almost 98% of the medical devices that we use. So this is not tenable from multiple perspectives. The first one, obviously, is minimal security of supply. We saw what COVID did during the COVID pandemic. You know, we were running helter-skelter trying to find basic products, basic drugs for our population. From also a public health perspective, you know, you also want to be able to deal with diseases that are epidemic in your own region, but also mostly looking at it from an industrialization perspective. So what this initiative is supposed to do is to find ways to reverse these numbers, basically to increase the share of locally manufactured products in Nigeria. That's the first mandate for this initiative. The second mandate is to reduce outbound medical tourism. We spend every year in this country about $2 billion for outbound medical tourism. So building quality infrastructure, diagnostic facilities, and, you know, building the human capital, you know, to be able to address that. This is what the initiative is all about, but also, again, you know, trying to create jobs in the high quality skilled jobs in the health sector, while also attracting foreign direct investment and mobilizing domestic resources. So this is what we've been doing. We've been approaching it in two ways. We've been trying to shape policy. We've been trying to attract financing. We've been trying to create an ecosystem approach, and all these things are really working, and I'll be happy to discuss many of the things. Just to close on this, to say local manufacturing of products, healthcare products, is a long-term activity. It's not going to happen tomorrow. What we are doing with this initiative, you know, under His Excellency President and also the Honorable Minister of Health as the leader of this initiative, is to create a solid foundation going forward, so that in the medium term, in the long term, products, Nigerians will have access to high quality products at affordable prices, and that's the ultimate goal for this.
There's been an executive order to attract private investment into the medical space, but the reality is the investment climate in Nigeria at this time is not very friendly at all. So it cannot be different for those who want to go into medical. So I wonder what you have as incentives for those who may even think about it, you know, coming into the investment space, the manufacturing space, whether it's medical or even outside medical.
Yeah, so, you know, we are, like I said, we are looking at it from an ecosystem perspective. The reason why this presidential initiative is different this time around, and I hear people saying to me, we've been doing this over the years in Nigeria. The reason why this is different, you know, a number of things. First of all, you know, it's a political will that is clearly apparent right now. Like I said, you know, the president, the Minister of Health, the Minister of Health, but also just to see and to say that this is also part of an integrated health agenda. You know, in Nigeria, we are now currently implementing a health sector renewal investment program where, you know, that is anchored on a number of pillars. And so this is one pillar. So the idea that this is not a standby alone activity, I think that's really very important. It all ties into the overall vision of the healthcare sector, which is to save lives, to create, to reduce pain, both physical and financial pain for all Nigerians. So that is number one. Number two, the way also this initiative is created is at presidential level, and you have multiple agencies. So everybody who has to be around the table for any decisions, key decisions to be made, is there. We have five ministries: the Minister of Health, Minister of Trade and Industry, Minister of Finance, Minister of ICT, Minister of Budget and Planning. We also have the regulatory agencies, NAFDAC. We have the research institutions, NIPRID, you know, financing institutions, Bank of Industry, NSIA, representatives of the private sector, which is really key to this initiative. You know, we have customs, you have FIRS, you know, so this is different in the sense that now you have everybody who has to take whatever policy decisions need to be taken for things to happen is actually part of that initiative. The second reason is that we are also looking at it from an ecosystem approach. And when I say ecosystem, I mean, we're not just looking at, okay, manufacture. When we started this, we went and met with the various manufacturers, and we created actually a group called Pharmaceutical Consultative Forum. We met in Lagos, we met in Kano, we met with industry players in the pharma sector, in just producing needles and syringes, and basically say, what are your problems? And just listening to them, it looks like the problems, the key issues are policy issues, regulatory issues, also the idea that, just financing and also market access. So we then came up with specific interventions, and this is where the executive order came in. The executive order for pharmaceutical and healthcare products was signed by His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu end of June of this year, and it actually calls for zero VAT, zero duty for the importation of raw materials and machinery for manufacturing of all of these products, vaccines, pharmaceuticals, test kits, consumables, so there is that whole part of it. The second part of it is the whole market shaping activity. When you produce, as a producer, you want an incentive, you want huge volumes, you want to be able to aggregate those volumes, you want to make sure that the market is working for you, that you'll be able to access the market. So this executive order is, I think, for me, the biggest incentive that we have provided so far to all manufacturers, because now you can be able to really say, we can bring in equipment, we can bring in raw materials for whatever we want to produce. And looking at the cost of production, just doing that, implementing this order will bring down the cost of production for many of these manufacturers by about 10 to 12% if you look at it on a per unit cost basis. So this is a huge incentive. Second thing that we're doing, again, just shaping the ecosystem. When you look at, again, the whole pharmaceutical or life sciences manufacturing value chain, there are so many things from R&D to basic manufacturing to distribution to going into the market. Now, when you talk about R&D, so some of the things that we've done quickly, we are laying a very solid foundation for research and development. We have signed an agreement with a company that has the best technology in the world for mRNA vaccines and mRNA products. Universals is a Belgium-based company. They're coming to Abuja. They've identified a partner, local partner here, where they will establish an mRNA platform for Nigeria. And this, again, the whole industry can build on that. Yeah, the second is the whole clinical trial ecosystem. Globally, the clinical trials market globally is about $50 billion. Africa accounts for only 2%. So what we're doing, if you want to produce your own products, you have to have a robust clinical trial system. So we are working very hard on that. We've developed a business case where we'll establish about 437 clinical trial centers. We've mapped, their infrastructure, their human capital needs, and we are working, we're raising financing to be able to create that system so that you have that fundamental basis. We are working with NIPRID, the National Institute for Pharmaceutical Research and Development, to look at how we can target research to specific products and specific phytomedicines that we use in this country. So now we can basically create our own system. We are working with the regulator, NAFDAC, and the Pharmaceutical Council of Nigeria to see how we can work with them to strengthen their capacity to make them more efficient to be able to regulate pharmaceutical production.
Yeah, Dr. Mukhtar.
Ecosystem.
Dr. Mukhtar, the thing is, what Nigerians will really want to know is how soon can we expect that all of these efforts will lead to a reduction in the price of basic pharmaceuticals that Nigerians use? What can we expect? When can we expect to see a difference? Because we haven't seen a difference yet.
Yes. Okay. So good question. If you listen to the Honorable Minister of Health last week, when he was on TV, he talked about an emergency relief measure that the federal government is already implementing that has been approved by His Excellency President. So you can go back to that interview. I think there is some money that has been allocated to provide immediate relief for the poor and the vulnerable in the society through bulk procurement of products. The minister talked about that. But local production is a medium to long-term activity. So if I told you that tomorrow we're going to start locally producing products, I would be lying to you. But what we're doing is really laying that solid foundation. I would say within the next 6 months to 1 year, you'll really have products. And I can give you specific examples. In terms of pharmaceuticals, we are working with some of the big pharma, and our focus is really in the pharmaceutical sector. Some of the already existing manufacturers here to make sure that provide whatever incentive. Last week I was in Lagos, in Shagamu. Actually, I visited one of those big companies. I saw their ambitions to produce those APIs, and they're working. And I've also visited a number of other companies to see what they're doing. So all these things will bear fruit as we lay down the policy programs that we are implementing, as we try to raise cheap financing for manufacturers. So I will say to you, in the medium term, in the next 6 months to 1 year, you'll be able to see activity. Outside, medicines, for example, one of the areas, bed nets, Nigeria has about 25% of the global burden for malaria disease, but we don't produce a single bed net. We signed just about 2-3 months ago an agreement with the world's largest producer of bed nets, a company called Vestergaard. They have found a local partner. They have acquired their technologies. They have acquired their financing. Q1 of next year, they're going to break ground. They're going to produce 10 million bed nets right here in Nigeria for the use of Nigerians, but also to be able to export to the wider West Africa region. So all these things are happening. I think that Nigerians, what I would say is to be patient, but also to understand that these are things that will require us to build an ecosystem that has not been existent, to be able to mobilize resources, to be able to identify, what needs to happen to address, working with other parts of government, the issues around infrastructure for local production, and so on and so forth. But clearly, yes, you are right. What I said at the beginning, there are emergency measures that have been put in place through the Federal Ministry of Health that will address the immediate concerns and the immediate hardship that Nigerians are facing in this area. All right, Dr. Abdul Mukhtar, National Coordinator of Presidential Value Chain Unlocking Program. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll count down to 1 year max and hope to see a difference in the pharmaceutical prices of the country. All right, so we'll move from there to Niger Delta. Well, it's no longer news. There's been a dissolution of the Ministry of Niger Delta, and according to that announcement, now we have the Ministry of Niger Delta that was promoted to create and coordinate policies of development of, now captured in the Ministry of Regional Development. I believe the president is swearing in the ministers today, those new ministers. And of course, that new ministry is going to capture not just the Niger Delta, the Northeast Development, the NDDC, the NEDC, the Southeast Development Commission. But we look at the economy of Niger Delta at this time and find out what impact this could have. Was it even impactful before now? All right, let's talk to the Managing Director of CSS Technologies, Mr. Arthur Usuagu. He's right here in the studio. He's very interested in the Niger Delta, even though he's into technologies and all of that. But there's been good morning and welcome to the program, Mr. Usuagu. There's been dissenting voices since that pronouncement was made by the president scrapping the Niger Delta ministry. But would we say the ministry was effective to the improvement of that region before now? And just for emphasis, Ondo, Edo, Delta, Bayelsa, Rivers, Imo, Abia, Akwa Ibom, and Cross River, these are the states that majorly make up the Niger Delta. Would we say that the existence of that ministry or the scrapping of it is going to make any difference to the life and economy of the Niger Delta?
Yeah, it's important we go back to the beginning. Before, there was not like the Ministry of Niger Delta, not until our late president, good Lord bless his soul, who thought it wise as a way to solve the persistent problem in the Niger Delta. Remember then, when the issue became so much that the production of crude dropped as little as 700 barrels per day from about over 2 million. So he created our ministry, to solve all the issues, all the restiveness, within the Niger Delta. And he did, gave a kind of a framework that solved majority of those problems. Basically, the restive aspects of the youth of Niger Delta. Remember then, we had so many groups, taking up arms against the federal government. But basically, it was because they felt that the Niger Delta was not being developed. So back to the question, yes, he solved the problem at that time. And whether they were able to take it to the bottom line, because I agree that not all the problems within the Niger Delta as regards to, petroleum industry cannot be solved within a day. But the creation of Niger Delta was a very, very good move on the part of the Yar'Adua government to ensure that at least people were brought back to the table and dialogue, continued. And to a large extent, it did solve the problem.
So now we're going to have all of that, both for the Southeast, for the Northeast, captured under the regional Ministry of Regional Development. Do we still see that continuing to solve the problem?
I don't believe so, because the Ministry of Niger Delta gave Niger Deltans a kind of a sense of belonging. It gave them the belief.
But we have NDDC.
We know. NDDC was just a subset of it. It was just an MDA, so to say, existing under the Ministry of Niger Delta. So the Ministry of Niger Delta was like the umbrella, making sure that everything is coordinated. But what has happened now, I'm sure you must have seen reactions from the Niger Delta area, opposing this recent move of our president. So I believe scrapping it or subsuming the Ministry of the Niger Delta, so to say, under a kind of a regional framework will not be viewed by people of the Niger Delta as the government is taking serious steps in terms of solving their problem. We have the Northeast Development, we have the South, so many of them coming in under the regional stuff by the by the administration. What has happened now is that people of Niger Delta will feel so pained, will feel so betrayed based on these recent change, that they will have a feeling that the government is no longer taking the aspiration of the Niger Delta as serious as the former government of Sheikh Musa Yar'Adua, blessed memory.
Well, Mr. Swagu, let's remember that we have other parts, in the country that also want attention. And we are talking about reducing the cost of operations of the government. If all of this, it's not as if they're scrapping the NDDC, which is supposed to focus on developmental issues in the region. Of course, the Northeast also have their own requests. That's why we also now have the Southeast and all of that. So shouldn't we be more considerate of the bigger entity, which is Nigeria, and the sentiments of other, people, other parts, other regions of the country?
No, the Niger Delta is the goose that is laying the golden egg. And if Niger Delta sneezes, it's going to affect our economy seriously. We are saying that our economy today is in dire straits and we're having difficulties, pulling back the economy from where it is. Now, if we take steps to create another trouble for this government, it's going to be too many kettle of fish to handle. So I didn't see any rationale behind, subsuming all the activities of the Niger Delta Ministry into a regional body. The North-East Development Commission can stand on its own. Ditto other commissions, because this Niger Delta is a special ministry. That even with the creation of Niger Delta, then some people within the Niger Delta still feel that what government is doing is still very little compared to the major issues that will have bedeviling the development of that part of the country. Is mangrove is a very, very difficult terrain. So if people are complaining that with Niger Delta Ministry, they are still unable, to handle up to 50% of the problem within the Niger Delta, but taking it out completely and subsuming it in another regional ministry, I think it will be much more difficult, to solve the problem.
Yeah, but the thing is, Mr. Swagu, having this ministry has not totally solved the problems of the Niger Delta. We have seen the issue of vandalism and oil theft still going on. We have not been able to hit our quota when it comes to oil production. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, we've also had PIA now. And we've had special executive orders, which is supposed to deal with host communities. I believe this is supposed to take the interests of the people, into heart. So if we have all of this, and the government is trying to reduce the cost of operations, shouldn't we give, benefits of doubt to say, okay, perhaps with the host community executive order, the PIA, and all of that, these can take care of the needs of the people of Niger Delta. Can we now have this regional body so that other parts of the countries interests are also captured?
Well, these are all frameworks, these are all ideas, geared towards ensuring that Niger Delta is developed. Even the PIA you talked about. Remember, there were laws of conflict regarding the percentage derivation for the host community, whether it's 5% or 3%. And that hula baloo has not been settled properly because the host communities are not really, really happy with the 3%, quantum that was given to them. So they believe that they needed more. If you go to Niger Delta, you agree with me, the level of backwardness there is massive. Even the remediation work we are talking about with Ogoni, people are still complaining that it's still very slow.
But when we look at it, it's the issue of transparency and management of the resources available to Niger Delta. That's actually the problem. Sometimes when you hear how much is being sent there, is being voted there, but ends up with the elders, the community. So and is the solution really creating ministry, or is actually bringing a system that is transparent in the management of resources at the end of the day?
Yeah, I know. I can't hold brief for the governors who are the one handling, all the revenue accruing from 30% derivation and so many of them. But the Ministry of Niger Delta was a direct approach methodology by the federal government to say to the Niger Delta, we feel your pain. We have decided to do this for you. And that actually solved the problem. It solved the problem, even if it's psychological. But what is happening now, removing that ministry or subsuming it in another regional integration ministry or so, gives the Niger Delta people the feeling that, this government no longer think about us. And you can read the barrage of criticism.
Yeah, we've seen that. All right, thank you so much, Mr. Arthur Usragu, the Managing Director of CSS Technologies, for your time. Well, we hear the Niger Delta, but I mean, at the end of the day, what we want is development for the region and other parts. All right, thank you so much for your time. Okay. All right, now just before we head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio, we'll take a look at the market. We saw that the stock markets in Nigeria closed in the negative for the month of October, unfortunately, where we also had a negative close last week. It was down 2.03%. Down to 97,000. I think we started the month, or we regained the 98,000 somewhere in the month of October. Lost it before the end, but we're still hanging on to 59 trillion naira. I hope there's a positive move today because this is too close for comforts right there. We've seen the banking sector bounced back 0.19%, consumer goods and industrial insurance in the red, while oil and gas, Aradel, are still moving one way or the other. But there's been so much profit taken on Aradel, since they came on board, came from the smaller unlisted market to the NGX. Seems a lot of investors had been waiting and they took profit vigorously at the end of the day. Top gainers for last week: Transcorp, Unicel, John Hall. Top losers: Aradel Holdings was a top loser yesterday. Carverton and Elalix also made up the trade, and top trades: Fidelity, Charms, and UBA. We're not hearing so much movement around the banking sector, but at least there's some positive movement right there. Their recapitalization is still on. That's much we can take. I'll be back 1 p.m. when Ladi will be here for Business Incorporated. I'll be doing the markets, give you a little bit of what's going on, intraday numbers. I do hope that we retain at least the 59 trillion naira level, but that's all from me. Back to Chamberlain today, I think it was Nelta and Kayla. Back to you guys for Sunrise Daily.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily Studios. It is said that one of the most constant things in life is change. I think the only other constant thing is the rise and...
Taxes.
The rising and setting of the sun and the air we breathe. Although that will get to a point where it will end. But then change is a constant. And change is happening around the world. But is it the kind of change we want? Or is it the kind of change that will be beneficial to us? Our next conversation is centered around changes, but this time in the US, and how is that going to impact on this Nigerian space? And
many people, should we care?
Well, does
this affect us?
Yeah, it should. We should care, because
it does.
Our democracy is modeled after that of the US. And guess what? Anytime you hear a conversation in the leadership space in Nigeria, one of the places they compare with is America. Or what you hear, dollarization of the Nigerian economy. But hold on, that's not the conversation. Conversations, elections are about to happen, and indeed they're happening. Voting started some days back, and it's going to be finalized, I think, today, tomorrow, and all that, for a new president. How would that affect the Nigerian political space and socioeconomic situation? To help us answer all of this, we have Ambassador Hassan Mohammed Hassan, a former ambassador and deputy chief of mission, Embassy of Nigeria, Washington, D.C., with accreditation to the Organization of American States in the U.S. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
So, Ambassador Hassan, of course, your profile here says a lot about how you can add and help us understand what's going on there. So let's start from that point of understanding.
Okay.
Change is about to happen in the US. Yeah. Whether the former president will come in or the vice president would elevate to the office of the president. Right. Change is about to come to the US. Mm-hmm. But let's start from that point. What's your take on this change that is looking like it's going to happen?
Yeah, it's a normal thing. In America, every 4 years, there must be elections to maintain the democratic nature of the society. So having an election now is just a continuity of the existence of America. And elections in the United States have impact all over the world, because the US is one of the major countries of the world, and people look up to her for so many things, for direction, for economic development, and a lot of things. So we can be an exception.
So every 4 years we have this drive for change.
Yeah.
But then the question I want to ask is, what do you think is driving the voters' decisions in the U.S.? Because it looks like there are two major parties. You have the Democrats, you have the, what's it on?
Republicans.
And the Republicans. But there's something that usually looks like it is driving them. The contestants or the aspirants go to the different groups and have these conversations, just like it happens in Nigeria.
Yeah.
But what are those things you will say that most often than not drive the American voter? There are so many things that drive the American voter to vote either Democrat or Republican. But the major things, if you don't mind, I have some. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. The major things that is driving elections voters to different parties, there is what they call abortion in the United States. It's a major, major factor. Women wants to take care of their bodies, and President Trump, when he was president, he got the Supreme Court, and they upturned what they call Roe v. Wade. So that one is very, very important. The second one is border crisis, immigrants trooping in from Mexico, from Latin America mostly. And President Trump built over 350 miles of fence during his time. And he has vowed to deport many immigrants and also to stop them from coming to America. And he has a substantial number of voters interested in that. So this is another thing. The other one is what they call climate change. And the climate change, you know, even in Nigeria here, when you have flood in the desert in Maiduguri, so you see there are a lot of things that attract people to that particular issue. And the next thing is crime. Crime, they said the immigrants are the major drivers of crime. America has her problems with crime, but they want to curtail crime, and they feel curtailing immigration generally will do that job for them. What they call, they have drugs. So the next thing is drug issues, opioids, and fentanyl. These are very major, young people especially, getting addicted, and is affecting the economy. So it's a major issue in the elections. The next thing is inflation. Inflation in America is not as we have here, but they complain a lot because their system is so organized that a slight push in inflation disorganizes almost everything there. So they are very particular about inflation, and the government of Biden is being accused of promoting, or his policies leads to inflationary trend. Yes. So the next is Israel-Palestinian conflict, which is a major thing in the U.S. But they seem to downplay the issue because U.S. is generally a pro-Israel kind of country. So the Arab population there, I don't think they have many supporters as such. So that aspect is downplayed. President Trump was quoted as saying that he will ask the Israelis to finish with the thing and get let the public opinion, if it lingers on, the public opinion will go against them. So let them finish as quickly as they can. On the other part, you have Kamala Harris, which represents the Democrats, and also President Biden. And so far, they have not done a fantastic job. They are independent. Their fairness is kind of not there. And the Arabs are there complaining, but I don't think anything can be done about it, because in America, the policy is Israelis are, virtually every Israeli is an American.
So the thing is, we do know that President Trump was like if not the first American president to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
That's right.
But if we take that and then come back to look at the policy difference between these two contestants contesting for the Oval Office, what would you say is the difference in their policies? One appears to be liberal to some and strict to another set of the society,
right,
while the other one appears to be all-round liberal. Which one exactly is it?
Yeah, they're not. You see, they are liberal, and they are the Democrats are considered very liberal, and the Republicans are considered like kind of hard on some issues. So, but the policy, the general overall policy on America, it depends on, it's all the same, but the vigor with which they pursue certain things differ. That's the major difference. Another area which is driving people in the elections now is what they call the gun safety policy. You can see almost every American has a gun in his house. But, and there are tendencies for Americans, for somebody to go into shopping centers, supermarkets, and train stations and open fire because, you know, mental issues. So the Democrats have said, are saying that they need to do background checks, they need to curtail gun possession, and the government is not, and the Republicans, most of them are gun owners. And you will see a family that has maybe 100 guns, yeah, different guns, and put, you know, stations in cabinet for display. Once you get to their houses, these are common things. But it's not good for the society because so many things, so many people have died unnecessarily. You see people, small boys, secondary school boys, primary school boys taking their guns, going to school to shoot their teachers or their classmates. And almost this is an annual occurrence. So they feel, the Democrats feel there must be gun control, which the Republicans feel otherwise. I mean, that's a fantastic breakdown of some of the things that the issues driving these elections: gun control, immigration, women's rights, the economy, and crime. And you know, in many ways, you know, from the narratives that we've been hearing over the past few months, the absolute difference between these two candidates is almost as though they do not see eye to eye on any of the issues. You know, even this morning I saw a tweet where Kamala Harris said she was going to legalize recreational marijuana. You know, people shouldn't be going to jail for getting high, according to her. You know, so totally different on a lot of issues. I want to bring it back to us as Nigerians. We have quite a number of Nigerians who support Donald Trump. That's true. Quite a number of Nigerians, and then quite a number who also support Kamala Harris when it comes to, you know, policy drives and where they look at foreign policy, especially. We are at an era where in Nigeria, we're trying to think Nigeria first. We're trying to see what, in whatever relationship we have with any country, how does it benefit us as a people? Under former President Trump and Vice President Harris right now, under either one of these people, what kind of relationships, what kind of policies would be favorable that they have proposed right now? What kind of policies do you think would be favorable to us as a people, depending on who's making those policy statements, either former President Trump or Kamala Harris? Yeah, there are domestic policies and there are foreign policies. And in terms of foreign policy, it doesn't matter who is there. They pursue the same ideologies and they pursue the same issues. The only difference is what is the motivation. Some people, a Republican may pursue a particular issue with vigor, with urgency, with all the strength they can muster. The Democrats, well, they are a bit lenient, they are a bit, you know. Okay, so let's focus on actual issues that we're having in the country right now. Security is one of them, and our economy. So we are worried about the security of Nigeria and worried about our economy, rising food costs. And we need to export more, we need to manufacture more and export more. These are some of the things that we are worried about as a country. Based on the policy statements of these two candidates, which one do you think, at least you've been in the missions, this is your area, which of their policy drives do you think would be expedient for us? Which ones will respond to us immediately and get us what we need when it comes to the relationship we have with that country? To be honest with you, the Americans, they're not, the care for African issues takes a back stage. So they've not taken African issues as their major concern. Okay. Yes. So if Nigeria is thinking that the U.S. will come to its aid in terms of economy or security, they have much more pressing issues that are of direct concern to them, and they pay attention to those ones. So it doesn't matter who is there, which party, the stand on Africa might not change per se. Yes, might remain the same. But in any, you see, Nigeria is bubbling economy of late. But now, the thing is, if you don't, the people tend to have, in Nigeria, we tend to have faith in foreign investors. Foreign investors, money like water finds its level. So you have to put your house in order first. If your house is not in order, I don't think many people will want to have a look at your economy. That is it. That is just it. So the only strategy for us, we have to make ourselves look beautiful in terms of economy, in terms of security, in terms of all the factors that are essential for economic growth. So if we fail to put those factors into account and to pursue them to a point that will manifest themselves very well, people will not look at us. We'll continue to grope in the dark, and government will continue to tell you there are foreign investors, there are this. Governors will go out of the country looking for foreign investors. The federal government will look for foreign investors, but what have we seen? But we keep repeating them. But I'm an economist. My first degree is in economics, and I know what I'm talking about. Even in the village, if you make your house beautiful, you go to the farm, your farm is all right, you sell your produce very well, and you get something, people in the village will respect you. So that's just it.
I mean, I want to be able to talk about immigration, because that is one major issue in this election.
Yes.
And you talked extensively about it and the impact it would have on the American voter. For the Nigerian, we are dealing with a Japa syndrome. Even though Japa is very expensive now. If you can afford Japa, you can afford to run a business in Nigeria. But we're dealing with the immigration issue. We have seen many Nigerians abroad who live in the United States worried about, what's going to happen to them when it comes to their status as American citizens. We've heard one of the candidates at least talk about mass deportations.
Yes.
And that's something that's worried a lot of people in terms of people's movement, from Nigeria to the United States and those who are living there and the conditions that they find themselves in. What do you make of these elections and the impact it will have on Nigerian migrants? And I'm not talking about illegal migrants, legal migrants, people who are there, to get greener pastures.
Yeah, when it comes to legal migration, they have no problems with it. America doesn't have problem with legal migration, but illegal migration, that's the problem. So Nigerians that are there, many of them are doing very well. They have distincted themselves within their communities, and I don't think there might be some slight aspect of discrimination, which is common, is all over the place, and is not only restricted to the United States.
Everywhere.
Yes, it's everywhere. Even in Nigeria, we have discrimination amongst ourselves. But Nigerians generally, they are doing very well, and they are very, very educated. There is a report on how Nigerians perform there, and they're living very well. So I think they are not very much worried. But
so if you're legally there...
Yeah, if you're legally there, you have no problem.
And then if you're trying to migrate legally, you should be calm,
they have no problems.
You mentioned the wars. Well, you mentioned one war, the Israel-Hamas
Israel, Hamas,
Hezbollah war. It's a war that Israel is fighting against all the people who have attacked it.
Yes.
But the Ukraine-Russia war...
I was coming to it when you interjected.
So when it comes to these wars, because Nigeria is impacted, especially with the Russia-Ukraine war, in terms of importations that we do from Ukraine. But talk to us a little bit about, a coming administration and the outcomes that each of these candidates have for this. I was saying it earlier, it's almost as though they are opposites when it comes to their mindsets about these wars. The Russia-Ukraine war and the Israel-Hamas war. In what ways, really, can these wars affect foreign relations between places like the United States and Nigeria?
So far, it hasn't affected our foreign policy posture. And even in the U.S., it's all the same. It's the same approach. But the problem is in the Ukraine issue, one will have to treat it very tactfully, because Russia is there, and Russia is doing a lot of harm to Ukraine. And the U.S. is 100% behind Ukraine. And the genesis of that war is that they want Ukraine to join NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So that North Atlantic Treaty Organization, they entered into an agreement, according to Russia, that Ukraine will not be part of, Ukraine will be a neutral ground, and they want to take all other, because most of those countries were part of the Soviet Union. So after the Soviet Union, dismantled, some countries became independent, just like Russia. And Russia was like the successor to the USSR. Exactly. So Russia is a bit scared, because if NATO they've been getting some of the smaller states
to join.
Yes, but now they're getting a major partner, and that is Ukraine. So that is the genesis of the whole thing.
So you're saying that this whole matter is tied to a membership of NATO?
Yes. It's tied to a membership of NATO.
So Ukraine should come now and say, we're not doing NATO again.
I think there will be some kind of a law. De-escalation.
But there's a reason why they want it.
Yeah, there's a reason.
there's a reason why they want
yes.
it.
Your Excellency, this whole elections are, when you were talking, you talked about foreign policy, and you also mentioned this Ukraine-Russia war hasn't really affected Nigeria's foreign policy as is.
No.
But there's something else you mentioned earlier, America first. And you said the two candidates are approaching America first.
Yes.
Just in different ways.
Exactly.
Now, let's look at America first versus Nigeria first. What lessons can we draw? Because the way it is, in our political space here, in the last election we had, it was a 3-horse race.
Yeah. And
the 3 men will tell you that they are pursuing Nigeria first in different ways.
That's right.
But how, when we look at this side and look at what we had, and going on to 2027, what lessons do you think we can draw in the pursuit of Nigeria first?
Yeah. The lessons we can draw is that the nationalistic disposition of Americans, they are very, very nationalistic. And Nigerians, I don't know, but we have some deficit in that regard. And we have to be dedicated, we rededicate ourselves to the general interest of Nigeria, the national interest of Nigeria. That is, we'll try to, we have to be outgoing in terms of the economy. We have to be doing better than what we're doing in terms of security. We have to improve on general welfare of the citizens. Like now, the level of welfare of Nigerians has very much degraded. So it affects almost everything. It affects almost everything. So, but in America, if there is such a move, before they embark on, the government embarks on a particular move that will have direct impact on the livelihoods of the people, is debated, is passionately discussed, and before they come up with a solution or they come up with a measure that will be kind of modified or they will accept or reject. But in Nigeria, there are certain things that government wakes up and it becomes
law.
And somehow people are confused. And
you know, some will say that in the Nigerian space we have issues with ethnic bias,
yes,
ethnic and religious bias,
yes,
which doesn't seem to play out in the US space. So in the midst of all of the ethnic groups they have amongst them, or the tribal groups as the case may be, that nationalistic thing is there. So
yes,
what would you say if you were to advise the government now to do? Because right now there are different initiatives going on. We have the Rebrand Nigeria initiative. We have the Nigerian Charter.
The Values Charter.
The Values Charter that the Ministry of Information and the Presidency is spearheading. So all these things look like, okay, trying to get everybody into one space.
Yes.
Look at Nigeria. But we still have the ethnic bias, or as a case of what are these things, nepotism in appointment, as some will say, nepotism in appointment, ethnic bias here, religious bias there. At what point can we draw up?
Yeah, in this respect, America will play maybe a very negligible role. It's a domestic issue. We find ourselves, unfortunately, embroiled in whatever is there because of our history, because of our social orientation, because of our association, and there is that mutual suspicion. But the thing is, when you come, I didn't witness the colonial. No, I witnessed this.
Okay. The colonial era.
The colonial era. When Nigeria was getting independence, we had 3 leaders. We had Awolowo, we had Zik, and we had Sardauna. And that's where regionalism, ethnicity came in. So the people didn't have an idea they could do otherwise.
Your Excellency, I'm afraid I have to step in here, and we'll have to find a way to get you back, because we need to get back to this matter of how do we drop all of these things to get to the point where we're thinking Nigeria. But we really have to go. We're completely out of time.
Okay,
completely out of time. But as I said, we will get you indeed. We could actually we will get you back here to talk about this matter.
All right.
Thank you so much for letting us be a part of your morning. It's been a beautiful day. We had Ambassador Hassan Mohammed Hassan, the former ambassador and deputy chief of Mission Embassy of Nigeria, Washington, D.C., with accreditation to the Organization of American States in the U.S. join us here. Thank you once again.
My pleasure.
And while we're saying thank you to you for letting us be a part of your morning, it's with some bit of a sad news. Quincy Jones, the producer of that song, We Are the World, has passed on at 91. And Kayla is not too happy about that.
No.
She was actually going to sing you the song, absolutely. But hey.
But what a great guy, great legacy. And he lived well, fantastic.
You too live well. I'm Neil Tagbe. Thank you for watching.
I'm Kayla Magwa. Have a great day ahead.